We keep talking about this transformation. So that's the award you were recognized for was this customer service transformation of the year.
Mm-hmm.
When you've been there for a year and a half, what was kind of the starting point? What made you kind of look at the support organization and decide that something needed to change?
Well, I've been doing this a long time, and I always, like I said, I like to start with the people and the process. So I looked at kind of how we were structured in terms of the way the teams were built out. What were they putting their attention on? Also, what were we doing well, and what were we not doing so well? The things that we were not doing so well, I basically just sat down with everyone and said, let's imagine a world where anything is possible. And so we started, essentially changing the way that we approach, problem solving for customers, making sure that we have standardized communication, but also not so standardized that it's cookie cutter. We also want to, one of the things that I think we're really focused on is that people component. So teaching the team, because it is technical folks, right? So they have a tendency to speak in tech speak pretty heavily, which isn't a bad thing, but it's also being able to sort of help them, understand engaging with the audience, whoever that person or people may be, and meeting them at their level. Dialing it back if you see that, maybe there's some confusion there, and just giving them a sense of, it's okay for me not to read from a script. It's okay for me to, to use a little bit of creative problem solving, and I mean, I'll tell you, customers really prefer it. They love it. They love people that actually talk to them like they're human, that give them reasonable solutions, that tell them when things are difficult, but that we have a plan. So that was probably the very first thing, and so centered around that was a lot of sort of training, retraining, rethinking how we engage with our clients.
So
Yeah.
data center environments they're kind of like hospitals, right? They're 24/7, 365. Every support shift handoff is like a potential moment where customer experience kind of resets, right? You get a whole new
Yep.
shift.
Yep.
How is that showing up before you started making changes?
Well, it was kind of inconsistent, just as you might expect, with a lot of change going on. There was some, like you said, it's 24/7, 365. Staffing for that is not always an easy thing to do. What I discovered was I didn't get a sense that there was alignment with the, sort of the mindset of, I used to work, just for reference, I used to work in India. I would live there for 2 years. And so I had to work a third shift all the time. And I realized there was a particular mindset that people that like to work third shift had. So we had to start, sort of looking at everybody and saying, do you really want to be in this role? And so we started shuffling, people around, moving people to where they felt like they could be the most productive, and almost organically, but also with, a fair amount of structure, you start to see that the handoffs become smoother. We're not dropping customer requests, or potentially slowing down on an issue that we should be able to resolve relatively quickly. So that was probably the biggest shift for us, was just getting the right people in the right seat at the right time.
Yeah. So let's walk
Yeah.
through the kind of the core of what you changed. You described it as a kind of a queue ownership with daily governance. What
Mhm.
does that actually look like operationally?
Yeah, so I mean, it's very simple. We have individuals that have responsibilities per shift as leads. We make sure that they're sort of managing uh, the intake as it's coming in, getting it organized, looking at it by priority, looking at it by timing. So when a request came in, what type of request it was, who's best suited to handle it on the next shift. And then just making sure that, again, that stays consistent, and that we always have also a backup plan in the event somebody's not present, sick, on vacation, what have you. So it was really just as simple as that. It's not a complicated formula. It turns out if you just sort of stick to the basics, you can kind of keep customers moving pretty quickly.